welcome to yet another edition of Talent and Technology. And today we have with us Steve Goldberg, who's a HR tech analyst, advisor, and influencer. He's one of the people who's worked in all strategic aspects of human capital management and the technology part of it. And it's rare to find somebody who's worked on both sides of the coin. So, without any further ado, thank you so much, Steve, for being here today. And I would like to start off by saying that when you think about technology that HR uses, what do you think is the place which offers the most value add for HR, for the organization? When they do that, what is the place you would think that that's the biggest reason to start exploring depth in what you are choosing?
Hopefully this doesn't sound too much like an evasive answer. It's not intentional, but I really think it comes back to what has that organization determined to be its real source of competitive advantage, and what are their pain points and their needs and business plans and priorities. So if an organization is going to be increasing their workforce by 30-40%, they better have a good handle on recruiting and what are the ways to get competitive advantage and the best practices that relate to recruiting. If the organization is going to be going into a new line of business, offering a new solution, a new product, a new service, learning is going to come to the forefront, obviously. If the organization has determined that if they can get the upper 5% of people in the market in terms of expertise, the real A plus players, and if they determine that it's worth paying a lot more for them, 30% above market they could pay, then compensation rises to the forefront. So it really depends on the context. But in each of those areas, and certainly, recruiting, training, learning, compensation, rewards, I'm kind of going through the gamut here. Performance, I would say performance management, any organization that's still practicing traditional performance management, in my opinion, is getting very little advantage from that. If they're practicing it in the way of once or twice a year, we're going to, look at your goals and we're going to give you check boxes or not. That organization, my guess is not going to be a leader in its industry. But the organizations that can think about all the ways that they can address somebody's skill gaps, behavioral issues that may come up. Soft skills are indeed behavioral issues. So if a person doesn't warm up to change, and organizations are changing much more often than ever before, and by the way, that's not a knock on a person's personality. That's a fact of life. Brains and the neuroscience of change tells us that most people don't want to change, and brains don't like to change. It's not a personality issue. So soft skills have to do with behavior. They can relate to culture change, eliminating toxic behaviors from the organization, which can range from biases to harassment, et cetera. So it really has to do with pain points and the blueprint for elevating the organization. And there's technology that addresses all the areas I just kind of went through. But the key, another key I'll mention is, what are the dependencies in order to be successful with that particular brand or branch of HR technology? And usually it has to do with change management as the universal dependency. But another one might be, and it's kind of a tangent to change management, and that is, what's been the experience using that technology for learning or recruiting or performance management or compensation? What's been the experience there? What are the sentiments? Again, it's part of change management, but if the experience hasn't been that great, the organization is going to have to put forth the extra effort in communicating what's going to be different this time.
You have created a bunch of different frameworks for different settings. And I'm always fascinated by that because it gives you a kind of a template with which you can quickly start to make sense of things. So if you were to look at all the different frameworks that you've crafted, Is there one that you are more fond of than the others? I mean, it's like one of those kids that you are a little more fond of.
Yeah, thanks for that. There's two that are my two children, my two favorite frameworks. I do have two children, but we're not going to talk about family now. So I would say my employee experience framework, which is the basis of what I call my employee journey framework. If anybody was so motivated and inclined, you could do a Google search on my name, comma employee experience or employee journey. And a couple of things I want to mention about that. And then I'll go to the second one, which is a totally different topic, and it's the leveraging of AI in human capital management. But in terms of employee experience and employee journey, it's really important to recognize a universal fact. And the universal fact is that all employees have an intrinsic need to do meaningful work, feel valued, and be productive. If you're not productive, your day is going to be long and tedious. If you don't feel you're doing meaningful work, you're probably not going to stay in that job, and the organization is not going to be deriving a great benefit from you being there. And feeling valued has a lot to do, so it's meaningful work, feeling valued, being productive. Feeling valued has a lot to do with being viewed as the sum of all the parts. It's not just what you do in the confines of your job. Are you also referring candidates that become great employees? Are you funneling ideas to the ops team to improve process? Are you giving sales leads to the sales team? So when the totality of your value is viewed and taken into consideration in terms of the investments in you, that's where I think the employee experience is at its zenith. But I want to switch over to the employee journey. I'm not going to get into all 10 stages. I have a 10-stage employee journey framework. I want to talk about one stage, and it could happen anytime. Presumably, it probably doesn't happen in the first 90 days, but it could. And that is what I call the exploration stage. And again, you could say it's universal. At some point or another, particularly for longer tenured employees, they're going to have this thought rolling around their heads that along the lines of, is this all there is for me here? And when you're at that juncture, which millions of people are at globally every year, the organization, if they don't let you know, convey to you that we are the type of organization where we'd rather help you solve that here than you go somewhere and solve it somewhere else, because we've already invested in you and we also think you're terrific. So we can allow you to explore what your aspirations are in terms of a job, a set of skills, a different career path, etc. So how the organization deals with that stage in the employee journey, so to speak, the exploration stage, can lead to a big delta between benefit and cost.
Who do you think owns the responsibility for the employees' skilling? Is it a partnership with the person's manager, the organizational framework, the L&D team, the employee? Uh, who should be owning bulk of it in your view?
Yeah, Abhijit, I might have told you this in a prior conversation, but one of the things when I was kind of thrust into being a company spokesperson for PeopleSoft almost 25 years ago, up until that point, I was always in corporate HR. So I was not doing a lot of road shows and presentations around the world. But that changed in a dramatic way when I took the reins of being head of strategy and spokesperson. And PeopleSoft at the time was a $2 billion product line. So I had to get certainly very comfortable in front of large groups, but I also had to develop some catchphrases that people can associate with me in terms of ideas that I'm promoting in the market. And one of those catchphrases, so to speak, was, to your point or question, line managers are the true stewards of human capital management. People managers That's where human capital management takes place. And it's a simple fact, it's an undeniable fact. HR departments typically comprise only around 1% of the organization. So, how can they deal with compliance and career growth and shepherding each individual's career in the organization can't be done. And it's not just shepherding careers, but it's being attentive to the needs, interests, and goals of employees. Because if they're top talent and you want them to stay, you better be attentive to the needs, interests, and goals. Line manager is really in the best position to do that. Maybe to a large extent, it can be a mentor, a coach, etc. So, so I really think that's key. Is line managers have to understand that they are the stewards of human capital management, and for that organization to derive major competitive advantage, sustain that competitive advantage, and for the long haul, then the line manager has to say, "I own human capital management. I'm going to do what I can to uh, to understand what makes the employee tick, to what is the best path for them that's going to balance their goals and needs and interests with organizational goals and interests." It's really the responsibility of the line manager. How can technology help with that? Um, the line manager should be able to extract data insights on nonlinear career paths that are occurring in that organization. Should be able to now with skills science should be able to uh, leverage a skills graph or a skills ontology and say, if you're good at A, you should be good at B, or we should be able to train you quickly to transfer skills over to B. And that's really the role of the line manager, not the HR department.
When you look at the world that we are living in, so many organizations are having to downsize the employee base, and yet at the same time the employers also want the employee to be engaged in the work, and we see that that's becoming a challenge for multiple reasons. Do you think employee engagement then is a thing of the past, that we should not be worrying about employee engagement because the employee knows that it's not permanent, the organization knows that the employee is going to switch if there is a different option. People are not coming into the office, so a lot of people say it's harder to build the organization culture and bond the teams because people are remote. In this new world, what is the role of employee engagement?
I think it's arguably more important than it's ever been. It has a lot to do with the fact that organizations are experiencing more change, more fluidity in the operating environment, and uh, and as you and I have discussed, humans as a species. I can't speak to other animals in the animal kingdom, but humans don't warm up to change very readily or easily. Has a lot to do with the neuroscience of change, but it kind of it change causes us, many of us, to start to question: is my job safe? What risks are out there? And again, the neuroscience of change uh, kind of almost shuts down in terms of critical thinking when the brain perceives risk. So engagement is the antidote to that in a way, right? So another one of my catchphrases at PeopleSoft years ago was the alternative ERP acronym. I kind of originated this, stands for engagement, retention, and productivity.
Wow.
That's my alternative ERP acronym, right? So engagement, retention, and productivity, all totally correlated. I'm in my mind, 40 years now in business. If you're going to come up with three kind of outputs or outcomes that are as correlated as any, it's those three.
You also have mentioned about this, the AI and HCM, the five pillars, if you will. What are those five pillars that you would describe as?
Yeah, very quickly. It's so I came up with a framework when you mentioned. Thank you for mentioning it. That I've been on all sides. So out of my now 40 years, 5 years roughly, I was an analyst for 3.5, 4 years with Ventana Research, where I headed up the HCM practice, and about a year and a half with Mr. B, Josh Bersin, Josh and I worked together back in 2010, and a number of other prominent analysts and industry influencers. We all worked together for Burson and Associates. So 5 years, during the 5 years I was an analyst, it was incumbent upon me to create frameworks. And the last time I was an analyst was with Ventana a few years ago, and then I went back to being on my own, which is where I'll stay, because I'm too old for anybody to employ me, perhaps. But but I would say uh, the last framework I developed at Ventana was this AI and HCM framework. So I compiled hundreds of use cases that relate to elevating HCM and the experience for employees and achieving a high level of engagement, retention, productivity. And they kind of fell into five buckets, right? For AI and HCM, they fell almost naturally into five categories in terms of leveraging AI. And the five categories are personalize, which pertains to the whole gamut of HCM. You could have personalized learning, personalized rewards, personalized recruiting in terms of the employer value proposition I'm going to give to you. If you're a passive candidate, I want to personalize the employer value prop to you. Personalization pertains to the whole gamut. And clearly learning is what most people think about, but it's not just content. It's how you learn, and the pace of learning and the medium and the modality you're going to use to learn best. So personalization is one. Predict is another category of use case. So you can predict employee retention risk. A third one is prescribe, right? Personalize, predict, prescribe. Prescribe is what's the best way to achieve something. What's the best way in terms of let's say a program management when you're bringing two companies together in a merger? What is the best way to deal with um, the integration process culturally, in terms of initiatives that are in process? How do you bring it all together and take advantage of all the investments being made in both companies and both of those organizations you bring it together? I'm sure there's some lessons learned, particularly for an organization that's been doing a lot of M&A over the years. What have they learned? And let me use AI to prescribe what's the best way to handle this situation. The last two are understand. I'll use a payroll example. Why is my payroll, if I have the same number of employees in this department, why is my payroll larger than it was last time? And it could be because, more overtime, could be because rates changed, leave of absence, etc. And the last one is curate. And for those of you that are familiar with the kind of the co-pilot, using a bot that helps you attain knowledge, even attain skills. And there's probably too much information and too much knowledge out there at our disposal than we could ever consume. So arguably, we need a co-pilot to help us navigate what's most relevant for us. And those are the five categories: personalize, predict, prescribe, curate, and understand. And I'm sticking with it.
One last bit that I wanted to get your views on, that when you look at you know human resources as a function in the world of AI, which are the roles that you think are going to disappear and or change or get modified? Which are the ones which are going to get enhanced dramatically?
Hmm.
And in which way would you say? So if we begin at the top with the CHRO role, what's going to change about that? And if we can just do another.
If you don't mind, let me think about this. I feel guilty that I haven't given it enough thought before you just posed the question. And not just because we were talking today, but in general, I probably should be giving this more thought. So, in terms of the CHRO and what might change for them, I think that they might be afforded the luxury of not focusing on operational improvements as much. The thing about operational improvements, sometimes it's just hit or miss. We're going to try this and see if it works, see if we get some benefit out of it. Why? Because we didn't have technology to say to us, hey, look, that's not going to work. Why isn't it going to work? Because 100 other companies have tried that, and here's a better way. Or you, this company that you're in, 5 years ago tried this, and this was a better path. So, operational improvements, I think, as important as they are, because they create efficiencies and efficacy and effectiveness. But I think the amount of time on like process reengineering, which a lot of people that have done it, including me, would say 60-70% turns out to be, in retrospect, the right move, and 30% we got to go back and tweak that more. But I think AI will help a CHRO change the percentages on how much time is spent. HR process reengineering, I think, should come down because they'll be guided. Data intelligence will go up. Data insights will go up. The notion of change management, which has never really, sadly, in my mind, become foundational to HR's mandate. I think it should be foundational to HR's mandate, but truth be told, not every CHRO is an expert in change management. You have to bring in expensive consultants. I think that, I mean, if you think about the bookends of change management, in essence, are assessing readiness for change and sustaining the change. Assessing readiness for change, it naturally, logically breaks down into, do we have the skills? Do we have the attitude, the right attitude? Is anything else going on in the organization that's going to interfere with the process, et cetera? And so I think HR tech can play a bigger role in change management. And we'll see more HR heads stepping up to the plate and taking the reins on change management instead of necessarily outsourcing it at the drop of the hat, like a knee-jerk reaction. We need consultants. So I think I'll stop there as far as CHROs.
And after that lovely conversation with Stephen, I thought I'm going to see what the other side of the equation is. Personalization really means taking both the organizational view as well as the employee view. So, this is one of those places where the Venn diagram really overlaps. So, I just thought I'm going to ask Prasad Rajapan, who's the founder CEO of Zing HR, what has been your experience as you've done these implementations across the globe? What is your take on this?
Thank you, Abhijit, for having me here. Having worked with over 1,200 customers, more than 2 million employees across various geographies, culture, and languages, people are looking for personal careers. They are looking for personal aspirations. People are talking of career planning. And in the past, people used to say, the management used to say, or HR used to say, I'll plan the career for people. I think today's world, each employee wants to craft their own career. They want to look at what the roadmap they have. And in the past, suppose you have got a people company with 10,000 people, it is humanly impossible for a HR team to craft careers for 10,000 people. But in today, technology using AI, looking at the insights, using tools like co-pilots, we are able to now look at what does a person want in their life. How do they laterally shift their career? What are their choices? What are their aspirations? Not just their skills, but what are the aspirations to grow? And how do they align to the companies? So for example, we have created a tool on career planning for individuals. While it can be used by HR and teams, what I can look at what are my career options laterally within the organization. Not only that, I can use AI to start even predicting whether I'll be happy there and successful there. Many times we talk of growth in my own department. For example, a programmer says my lateral growth is a project manager. Need not be. We have seen a lot of occasions where a high-end coder has gone into marketing, product marketing, which I don't think he or she would have ever thought of. And that is the power of technology coming in, looking into insights and make you aware of what can happen or what are the future infinite possibilities with individuals. And I think today's world, all of us owe that role for the organizations and people for them to grow in their career using those personalized insights.
You are really helping the individual craft their own choices, in the short term. Here are the opportunities, this interests me. It becomes almost like deciding for when you go to a buffet, you can actually pick and choose some of the items. You don't necessarily find everything equally appealing, but you can pick and choose. The notion of careers, when you personalize it, really means that you take extra helpings on something and ignore some of the other things. So that's really what personalization, and that's what are you seeing this as a global trend? Are you seeing this in by a country? Is it different? How does it look?
Today, technology also can tell you on a real time whether that you are intolerant to that food or not. Whether you
Uh-huh.
are whether you will take up that job, whether you will be happy or not, whether it suits your DNA. Large progressive companies are looking for such solutions, and career planning has to be left to the people also. We have seen a huge trend in Southeast Asia. We are seeing a huge trend, of course, in India. We are seeing a huge trend in public sector companies. We work with a large public sector bank in India with over 500,000 people. How do I do personalized career planning? How do I do a skill mapping and competencies? And how do I look at future roles? But people are now, companies are saying, what are the future roles which will emanate from? And now, how do I build the skills for that? How do I help my employees craft their personalized strengths and to match the future skills? So it's coming up, I think, and it's rapidly being used thanks to technology and thanks to players like us who are now telling people focus on personalization, focus on the purpose of the company.
And on that really optimistic note, I want to say thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate your doing this. Till the next time, goodbye.